Good morning. Welcome to the BOLL Morning Session on Azure Cloud Security and CTNA. We will be covering many topics this morning and look forward to another exciting morning session. If you have any questions, please write it down in the Q&A section of Zoom or in the chat box. With us is Philippe Saint-Pierre, Cloud Security Business Development Manager, and Adrian Sameli, Cloud SA from Fortinet. And now we'll turn over to Philippe and Adrian for a brief introduction, and then we will get right into the session.
Great, thank you very much, Rudy. It's a great pleasure to be with you today and present an update on Fortinet Adaptive Cloud portfolio, which will be a quick overview of our portfolio and sales speech that we will do as an intro. And then we will inform about product updates. We will go a bit into network security to the cloud and Azure specifics that Adrien will present. And then we will do, let's say, a few seconds break and take questions. So if you have any question, please warm up at that time. And then we will go into ZTNA and cloud. And obviously, Adrien will go in depth into how to configure, deploy, and manage ZTNA forward into the solutions. Yeah. So we will have also questions toward the end. So don't hesitate to raise your questions at the break or at the end as you wish. Yeah. So very welcome again. Very pleased to cover this agenda today with you. Yeah, it will be a mix of sales pitch that I will do, and Adrien will go more into depth. So let's get started, and thanks again. So first about the customer challenge. Yeah, what do we see out there, and what are the difficulties? So a lot of customers are saying they are obviously accelerating to the cloud. They are going through their digital journey, developing into the cloud, but they lack visibility. They don't have the same level of control when they are into a cloud. It's also a custom framework. They have lack of expertise because each cloud comes with specifics on networking, for example. And also sometimes, they are surprised about the bill at the end of the month. And it is an issue, yeah. So the next thing is, they would like to keep their rules and their security policy consistent between their private environments, their data center, and public cloud, and make sure that you don't redevelop everything into public cloud. And from an SMB standpoint, security operations is clearly a concern. And how to manage across the two environments is clearly one of the challenges they have. Also, having proliferation of security tools is a key issue at the moment. Yeah. So this is the key challenge. And the way that Fortinet is addressing this challenge is what you may have heard about is the Gartner latest trend, which is the cybersecurity mesh architecture, which has been announced in 2021 as one of the new strategic directions that customers should pursue. And obviously, the Fortinet response to that is the fabric. And we have a very strong portfolio covering adaptive cloud security, network security, covering zero trust, and covering operations, NOC and SOC for security management. So all of our solutions are integrated around FortiOS, which is the consistent pillar to our products. And this is one way for us to address this cybersecurity mesh architecture that Gartner is now promoting as the target for enterprise customers. So in this Gartner security mesh architecture, you will find that the policy orchestration as a central management is very critical, same as central posture management. And then you should have access as a service to different solutions to protect your entire surface into hybrid clouds. Yeah, that is the Gartner target, and obviously the analytics also is a key value into the middle that you see here. If now you look into the Fortinet product, into the fabric, I would say, ecosystem, you see that we are very close to the Gartner cybersecurity mesh architecture. We have FortiManager and FortiCloud for this central policy management across the board of all our solutions. You have FortiEMS, and we will cover this into the ZTNA for the securing centrally and managing the rules for securing applications and user access. You have FortiMonitor to get full visibility on end-to-end security, traffic, and protection. And then you have FortiGuard for the AI, I would say, layer, which is bringing the zero-day knowledge and latest threats and risks analysis and identification. And this is spread across all our solutions, which are also meeting the Gartner target. And we will cover today very much this blue section here, which is the adaptive cloud portfolio. And then we will cover the ZTNA portfolio. We will not discuss about network security today. We will not discuss about NOC and SOC. We will have further sessions, but today we will focus on the blue and purple area of the Fortinet cybersecurity mesh fabric. Yeah. So that is just to also help you as a partner explain to your customer their interest working with Fortinet as a single solution provider for cybersecurity, and this is really now becoming a clear value add for your customer. So the challenge that now, if we are focusing onto public cloud, into hybrid cloud and the blue portfolio, which is called adaptive cloud on our side, a lot of customers are now accelerating to public cloud. So we have about 71% of customers who are really targeting this into 2021, 2022. We have obviously new applications, 40% deployed into public clouds. A lot of customers are starting to adopt and accelerating DevSecOps. That is a very strong trend, and we will say a few words about this. The threats into the cloud framework are very much coming from misconfigurations. So it is not like into your private data center. This is coming from the I would say the human attention or human knowledge, which can create a risk of access or exfiltration of data or API which are not protected. And this is the main risk that we see into the cloud usage. Obviously, the fact that there is many different tools is also contributing to creating exposure into customer environments. And edge computing is creating a proliferation of protection targets and endpoints. And this is also accelerating, as you see, that 50% of your customers will have an edge strategy into the 2022-2023 framework. So we have now, in terms of the key challenge, so hybrid cloud is clearly something that is on top of mind. Hybrid cloud security is #1 priority for your customer. The fact that the risks are obviously exponential when you're going into this hybrid cloud. The misconfiguration problems is clearly one of the focus points, and then the proliferation of tools. And this is how we will address that challenge. We are coming with a portfolio of solutions into cloud security, which is multi-cloud, completely integrated with central management and covering all the aspects of cloud security, from network security to application security to visibility and automation and DevSecOps. And we will cover quickly the portfolio. So you have a bit of an overview on our solutions. So if we start from the right, so you all know FortiMail. FortiMail is available into different formats: device, virtual machine. FortiMail as a service, which is called FortiCloud, FortiMail. We have our FortiMail Cloud. We have FortiWeb, which is a WAF solution, which is protecting applications, HTTP, and APIs. FortiWeb is also available as a physical appliance, virtual machine, and as a service with FortiWeb Cloud. So this is the free form factor. And you have FortiADC for application delivery, FortiGSLB for load balancing. So these are also something you can use to help your customers scale across multiple regions. FortiADC is used to protect SAP, for example. So that is a very powerful way to create premium protection on SAP HANA. That's for the application. On networking, we will review this and we will spend some time together with Adrien to go in depth into how you can protect the cloud with FortiGate VM and SD-WAN. And I will spend now a few minutes to talk about something that you may not be too familiar with, which is FortiCWP for workload protection, FortiCASB, container security for FortiCWP Container Guardian, and then a new product which we are just announcing fresh in Switzerland. It's called FortiDevSec, and we were missing this type of solutions, especially if you compare to Palo or other security provider. We have now a strong solution to help your customer protect application development and test the application security before deploying into production. So I will say a few words on that. So let me present in 2 minutes FortiCWP, CASB, and FortiDevSec, and then we will go into network security to the cloud. So what is FortiCWP and FortiCASB? So FortiCWP is a visibility, risk management, compliance management solution, which is as a service, which is providing you visibility on public cloud risks, and exposure. The way FortiCWP looks like, it is something like this. So you come into a dashboard, you see or you provide to your customer the scoreboard, scorecard, where they see what are the risks, what are the exposure on their IaaS environment. It can be just Microsoft or Microsoft and AWS or whatever. You provide visibility to them, and then they can drill. So they can click into, let's say, the critical exposure on Azure. You see here that you have a botnet exposure on one virtual machine, that is here. So then you would select on it. You would see how this virtual machine is structured, where it is running, which virtual network are potentially at risks. And then you can view the attack surface. You can understand the risk score, the vulnerability exposure, and then you can click on it and you can take actions to potentially remediate. So that is something which is quite interesting, because your customers going into public cloud, most of the time they don't have understanding of where they are exposed and how that exposure is creating a risk to them. So we really advise that if your customers is accelerating to Azure and considering AWS, you can help them with this visibility and risk management solutions. And also CWP is providing compliance reporting on your cloud usage, which is quite key for a lot of customers. So you see, we have compliance reports that you can get scheduled, or you can run yourself on request. So I will not spend too much time on FortiCWP, but if you're interested, we can do a demo, we can help you get started, and we can help you get the free license so you can do a demo yourself to your customer. So this is what is FortiCWP. FortiCASB is this visibility, risk management, and compliance management tool, but for SaaS. This time we are looking into all the SaaS applications used by your customer. And the same, if I try to do a quick demo of FortiCASB, you come into a dashboard view the same way. It's a SaaS application, so it is available for your customer. They can obviously customize it. So you will see the customer's applications that are being in use, and then they can drill into that applications, and the same way they can see the risks, the exposure. They can drill and run compliance reports, and you can also have visibility on the IaaS storage from by the way, you have it on FortiCASB and FortiCWP, the two ways. Yeah, so if you click on Office 365, for example, you will see an overview of all the alerts, all the risks, the activity, and if there are any policy which are violated, yeah, that you see them, it will display in a second here. And then you will eventually be able to drill into that, understand what is the exposure, what is the risks, and then you can take actions to remediate. Yeah. So this is another way to help your customer protect themselves against threats into SaaS usage. And we can provide you also demo licenses, so you can demo this to your customer. You can do a proper demo. What I would like to highlight on FortiCWP and CASB is you can create your security risk assessment service based on this solution for your customer. So this is something where you can really create an added value as a partner, where you can come to your customer if the customer is using Azure, for example, since a few months or since more than a year. Then you can, as a way to help the customer, you just provide a security assessment, public cloud security assessment. You run CWP for a week. You come with this type of reports, and then you can have an open discussion with your customer to see how you can help them mitigate the risks, because most of the time you will find exposures on storage buckets or traffic issues or things like that. Yeah. So we highly encourage that you consider creating such a consulting service. That is something we can equip. We can give you FortiCWP as a license, so you can really use it and create your service around it. Yeah. Or you can sell it to your customer as a product, as you wish. Okay. So this is something I wanted to spend a few minutes. Now, I wanted to announce also a new product, which is FortiDevSec. We had a gap into our portfolio about DevSecOps and how to help customers protect their applications when they are developing the applications, protect the libraries that they use, on GitHub or if they are into Ansible. So the objective was, or Jenkins, so any library that they use in their CI/CD pipeline. Now we can help your customer scan this source code, these libraries, identify if there is any vulnerability, any risks, any exposure before it's deployed into production. And we can help your customers scan their source code, their third-party libraries, and anything that they have deployed into the CI/CD pipeline deployment development framework. So this is quite interesting. We are doing, I would say, we are obviously integrating with Jenkins. We are integrating obviously with GitHub, with Bamboo. The customer obviously with Azure DevOps and all the major CI/CD platforms. So the customers can plug into their CI/CD platform FortiDevSec as an assessment tool. We will help them run a scan into their applications and their source code and their libraries. So there is dynamic application scanning or static application scanning or secrets scans. So we can really run, I would say, the scan according to the type of application. And the FortiDevSec automatically propose which scan to run, and then displays the results into management dashboards, and then list the threats and the risks that could be found into your application. And then all of that is being obviously ranked. So you have a score, and it's being prioritized in terms of risks. So the way it looks like is when you run the scan with FortiDevSec, you have the risk scoring, which is displayed here for your application environment. You have the type of scan tools which were executed on the right. And then you see what are the risks that are being identified for each application. And you can click on it, and you can see from the risk rating, you can see what is the exposure and how to remediate that exposure. So this is something which is very easy to use, very simple to interpret and get the results, and then the application teams can take actions right away before the code is being pushed into production. So this is really something very easy for you to demo to your application development teams in your customers, and this is something which has a great value for them. Yeah, so we highly encourage, if you're interested into this new offer, contact me and Adrien. We can do a demo. We can grant you for some ITF licenses, and you can get started with this. Yeah. Okay. So that is about FortiDevSec, FortiCWP, FortiCASB. We also have a container security solution, but today we will focus now on network security to the cloud. I think this is obviously the core, and this is where you have most of the project customer needs. And this is where the customers are struggling, obviously, the most at the moment. Yeah. How do I protect my network into Azure? How do I extend my VPN? Shall I use Azure V1 Express Route? How do I secure this? So this is all the questions, and that's where we will cover now. Obviously, we will explain that into a multi-cloud framework, and then security in the cloud, we will defer to a next webinar, a next morning session. So what we see from your customers' experience into cloud adoption is customers really are into phase one. So their business wants to use Azure or AWS or any cloud provider, because they want to do data analytics, they want to do ML, AI, they want to leverage some advanced, DevSecOps platform or whatever into Azure. Yeah. So then your network and security teams are considering extending their VPN into Azure, and then they are seeking for support. And that is phase one use case. But then what happens is the business is really going to see, oh, I have these great solutions in Google Cloud, which we really want to leverage. And then can you please expand again to Google Cloud? And then eventually you may want to leverage Direct Connect from AWS because it's cheaper. So the customers will be then going into phase two, and they face this additional complexity of network constructs that has to be evolving to address the business needs. And phase three is when the IT teams are now facing a situation where they have their networking to Cloud 1, networking to Cloud 2, networking to their hybrid private data center. And then they have security in Cloud 1, security in Cloud 2, security in Cloud 3, and it's becoming a mess. So what we would like that you help your customer with is to design their cloud network and security for phase three right away. Don't start with phase one, re-engineer with phase two, re-engineer again for phase three, because you're going to die in the process. It's very complex, very resource and time consuming. It's putting a risk on your customer production environment. So let's all together, yourself as a partner, come to your customer's meeting room, and let's agree to design for phase 3 right away, so that your customer is not going to be stuck into this ever evolving cloud adoption journey and complexity. So this is what we would like that you drive as a discussion, because phase 1 creates a lot of limitations, constraints, performance, exposure. Just extending your VPN to Azure is not a solution for midterm. It's obviously working quite nicely, but that is creating a lot of limitations. And the same way, if you do it, just into one region, just into one cloud, just into one approach of solution management, that's again going to create a lot of challenges. And if you want to adopt security into cloud provider A, then you adopt security into cloud provider B, and etc. Then your teams will just suffer, because there's too much custom solutions, additional products, complexity, and everything is really not integrated either. So it's going to be very difficult. So our recommendation is, as I said, design for phase 3, assess right away the options from your cloud providers to improve networking, and that could be Direct Connect, Express Route, Azure V1. It can be different constructs. Yeah, it is important to assess these options from day one, and then design your network security to the cloud, taking into account all the options, so that you're not stuck into option 1. You're not just extending your VPN to Azure by default, but you're looking into, I can extend my VPN today. I create a security and networking framework that helps me adopt Express Route or Azure V1 in the future with the same security construct. And that is something you should drive to your customer. So what is our solutions and what do we propose? So whatever the network construct that you can advise or you can propose to your customer, then we are coming with this Cloud Security Hub concept, where the customers will terminate their network connectivity to Azure, to AWS, into the same construct, which is a high availability construct with a pair of FortiGate VMs, which will terminate the traffic and then will filter north-south to the VNets, to the cloud, I would say, subnets. Yeah. And then in that security hub, you can add additional services to meet the customer needs, being FortiWeb for their APIs and web HTTP7 layer protection. You can bring FortiMail, FortiSandbox for file sandboxing. So you can use this security hub design as a way to expand your security, I would say, protection and scope within the cloud, the public cloud provider landing zone. Yeah. So this also helps you create a consistent design, which is fully scalable. You can design and deploy this security hub into an auto-scaling platform. So when your customers are telling you, okay, you know, I need to make sure it's high available, it's scalable, it is also bringing enough performance, then you can meet all of these objectives, and you can really provide to your customer the highest security, which is consistent with the FortiGates that they have in their on-premise. And you can manage all of your policy rules, all of your security policies into a central way with FortiManager. So you have complete, consistent security design from private to public cloud. So that is the security hub concept. Obviously, Adrien will go into more detail in that in a minute. And when your customers are looking into multiple cloud security, that's exactly the same approach. We are enabling your customer with this end-to-end, I would say, managed framework, where you can have an integrated cloud security with the cloud provider network framework, being Azure V1, Express Route. So we have the same capability to protect every cloud. And this is not limited to AWS, Microsoft, or Google, but you can expand to OCI, to IBM Cloud, to Ali Cloud. We have exactly the same construct, the same solutions, and the same opportunity to manage the security in a consistent way. And this being said, I would like to say a few words about SD-WAN, because SD-WAN is also accelerating very much into your customer environment, and we can help also yourself present to your customer the interest of SD-WAN into a cloud on-ramp approach, because we, SD-WAN for us, it's not like if you deploy any new product. SD-WAN, if you look at it from Fortinet, as you know, it is a feature that we enable from FortiOS. It is providing to your customer the opportunity to segregate security and application access by application priority, application quality of service. And this is an overlay service which you can leverage from the FortiGate and FortiGate VM. So there is a great opportunity to improve your network end-to-end design versus pure standard VPN access to the cloud. You can also discuss with your customer how to implement an SD-WAN on-ramp into Azure or into AWS. And the use case for that is whenever your customer is using, I would say, critical SaaS applications with internet access or dedicated link, then they need a higher priority and they need higher security. So if you go with an SD-WAN design, you can not only get the flexibility to prioritize the traffic, but also you have the flexibility to manage the cloud on-ramp access into the best secured approach. So you have the benefits of the both worlds, the highest performance and availability for SaaS access, and the best security and flexibility for on-ramp access to public cloud. So this is really something that you should open discussions with your customer and see if it's a good timing to promote SD-WAN and SD-WAN to the cloud. Okay. We have a very strong solution for this. We have a lot of practice templates, and you can leverage also the constructs of the cloud provider like Azure V1. So this is something which we can spend some time with you, and we can help you get started and obviously present to your customer. We have quite a lot of experience into this cloud on-ramp orchestration through SD-WAN. And as you want to open your discussion with your customer, please don't hesitate to contact me and Adrien for prior support. So this is something I wanted to share with you because we see this is highly accelerating, and obviously in Switzerland, it will become a key discussion with your customer. Now, something we would like to present to you, not only Fortinet and FortiGate VMs bring the highest security and performance into public cloud, but also they are integrated with all of the cloud provider networking. And for example, we were integrated with obviously the VPN gateway or the load balancer access into Azure for VPN termination. We had a complete integration with ExpressRoute, obviously with our SD-WAN, obviously integration into Azure, for example. And now Microsoft released new networking solutions like Azure Route Server, Azure Application Gateway, Azure V1. We have complete and direct integration into all of this, and I will hand over to Adrien to explain how we can leverage Azure Route Server, integrate with our Azure Route Server, and secure with much better solutions Azure Route Server and Application Gateway. So I hand over to you, Adrien, and then I'll just come back on this.
All right, thanks a lot, Philippe. Welcome from my side as well to this 2022 webinars. And yeah, you might have seen also webinars on last year. So we try to build up on that a bit, and not that you hear all time the same. I will share my screen now. Do you see my screen?
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. I said thank you for joining. My name is Adrian Sameli. I'm a systems engineer for public cloud in Fortinet, Switzerland. And don't have to show you the agenda. Philippe introduced you already what we are going to talk about. The first topics will be the route server. So this will be the focus topic, and then a quick outlook to the gateway load balancer. Afterwards, we will see ZTNA, what's new. Here it is important since we have demonstrated last year in many different sessions how we leverage ZTNA. There are changes in it, and we just want to tell you what are the differences between FortiOS 7, for example, or 7.0 compared to 7.02, for example. So let's dig into the Azure Architectures first, our route server. So most of the time we are pushing the hub and spoke model. As Philippe showed you, we are calling it a Cloud Security Services Hub. So this means we have one centralized hub where we inspect all the traffic which is flowing here, for example, through Microsoft Azure. This can be in every cloud provider. You can also consolidate. You can also say, okay, I just want to have a Cloud Security Services Hub only in Azure or only in AWS or Google. Then terminate all your spokes into that hub. That's also a possibility we have. This is also a model which is propagated by Microsoft. So the hub and spoke model gives you a lot of flexibility, and also the possibility if spoke needs to be routed through another NVA, to another service, to another or needs to be built to another department, it can easily be adjusted. So let's talk about the Azure Route Server. The Azure Route Server simplifies dynamic routing between your network virtual appliance, the NVA as we call them, and your virtual network. So there are two different ways to create your network infrastructure. There is one way which is managed from Microsoft. This is a solution called Virtual One or vWAN. This is the short term. And the hub and spoke model, as we propagated, is the kind of a do-it-yourself option for the same. So what is the difference between these two models? On the hub and spoke side, on the do-it-yourself side, you will deploy everything in your own subscription. So you will maintain all the interconnections between your on-premise environment, between your spokes, between your hubs, if you have multiple hubs, and you can interact via the Azure portal, for example, and FortiGate. And it also aligns to the cloud adoption framework or the landing zones from Microsoft. And this is the link also how Microsoft sees the world. And in Microsoft Virtual WAN, the whole deployment is being done in a subscription of Microsoft. So you won't have access to those virtual machines. You won't have access to those configuration parts. It's all managed. So this means you can only interact by the Azure portal or via API. So the do-it-yourself option, obviously it's a bit, I would say, cheaper or less expensive on the Microsoft side, since there is no managed service fee which you have to pay to Microsoft. And it gives you granular control over your network. So you can very specifically say where and what is going to deploy. You can also terminate a VPN on a FortiGate, for example, and use all the capabilities of SD-WAN. We have a new offering. Sorry, Philip, you might mute yourself. I hear your mouse. If you have a low number of Azure regions, it is very easy to deploy. You don't have an administrative overhead. But if you have many long distance regions, means maybe you have regions in Asia, regions in the US, and also in Europe, it might be easier to just buy the managed service from Microsoft. I mean, we as Fortinet integrate fully in Virtual WAN and have an offering together with Microsoft to benefit of all our features in FortiGate. All right, now we're coming to the route server. The route server is basically a service from Microsoft. It is in the backend the same as you find it in Azure Virtual WAN. And the route server needs to be deployed in a dedicated subnet. So it has to be named exactly as it's stated on this drawing, called route server subnet. And you need to have the minimum of a /27 network. And those route server appliances will be deployed in a scale set. And those appliances act then as a BGP endpoint. So how do we interact with the route server? So the route server itself is not developed to process traffic. So even it does if you send traffic to it, but it is not intended to. The route server requires you to have a multi-hub external BGP support. So we have to talk eBGP to the route server. And they are on different networks, obviously. So the route server, and therefore eBGP is needed. So Azure Route Server is also using the same ASN. So it's this 65515, and this cannot be changed. What the FortiGate, on the FortiGate side, we can use whatever ASN we want. It doesn't really matter, so except the reserved ones from Jana, obviously, but we can use all the others. So we have several limitations, or I mean max caps on the route server. So the maximum of BGP peers is 8, and the maximum of routes which we can advertise is 1,000. If you or your customer using Express Route or a VPN gateway, we have a maximum of 200 routes. Then there is also kind of a limit, or would say best practice recommendation from Microsoft to have no more than 2,000 VMs in a VNet. We think this limitation is to maintain the route server, or no, sorry, to maintain the routes in each and every VM. I don't know if you're Azure or how good your Azure skills are, but in Azure, all the VMs have a dedicated route table. And if a route is being updated by a route server, the routes have to be updated on each and every single VM on the route table. So we think that that Microsoft tries to keep the numbers as low as possible and therefore gives out the recommendation up to 2000, but we cannot comment it more. So the tested failover time in an active passive environment, as you have it usual, is 2 to 3 seconds. Here, standard public IP is required for the backend connectivity. So this was initially not the case when Azure Route Server was in preview, but they have rewritten it from Classic and changed that. So most of the time, as said, you will have an active passive setup. So if you have an active setup, both units will advertise routes to the route server, and therefore you will need ECMP. The BGP timers are static and cannot be changed, unfortunately, and it is not supporting bidirectional forward detection. I'm sorry if you hear some background noise. My neighbors started to drill holes in their walls this morning. I hope you still hear me loud and clear.
Yeah, that's okay. We can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, let's talk about the flows. So the network flow is not really changed since the route server is only acting on the control plane. This means it is not processing any traffic. It just pushes the routes to the VMs, also from and to the FortiGates. And you see just 2 IPs of the route server. It's the .68 and the .69, which will be used for the route server. The traffic flow is exactly the same as we have it in an active passive environment on a setup with FortiGates. So this is the outbound connection, same as well. If there are any questions on the traffic flow, just let me know. I can then explain further. Then we have also a use case on multi-hub. So here we are going to mimic a bit the virtual WAN by using global VNet peering. We have 2 hubs, and in both hubs there is a route server. And we have an active passive cluster of FortiGates in both hubs. So 2 Azure route servers cannot talk to each other. This is also a statement of Microsoft, and it's kind of a hard limitation, say. And we needed to find a way that the 2 route servers can exchange routes anyway. So the solution here is that the route server can interact with the FortiGate, and FortiGates, of course, can interact with each other. And also on the other side, on the second side, there can be a second route server, which can then interact with the local FortiGate cluster. So this is how routes are being propagated. So if there is a subnet 1 in region A, it is being propagated by the Azure route server to the FortiGate. Maybe I use a laser pointer to express that. So it's this subnet here is being then propagated by this route server to that FortiGate cluster. That FortiGate cluster talks to the other FortiGate cluster on the other side. And this one is then propagating the route to the route server. This is how it works. This is an VXLAN overlay between those 2 FortiGate clusters because the route server is affecting all the routes of all VMs in the whole subnet. This means it will limitate FortiGate to itself and will not allow FortiGate to then talk to that subnet or to that FortiGate inside P. So therefore, we needed to establish some overlay connection. So we could have used IPsec as well, but we decided to use VXLAN since it is more lightweight and has a bit less overhead. So this is it from the route server part. I will show you a quick outlook to the gateway load balancer, and then we are open for questions for the first round, and then we will proceed then with setting. So let's go ahead. As said, Azure Networking and Gateway Load Balancer. The Gateway Load Balancer is still in preview mode from Microsoft. This is something which will come in the next few months, I guess. And then, so with the Gateway Load Balancer, we can just forward traffic transparently to the clients and also to the sender, and just forward traffic to some NVAs. So in this case, it is a FortiGate cluster, of course. The traffic can be inspected in here and can be sent back, and then the traffic will then be redirected by the Gateway Load Balancer to the consumer network. So there is also a blog article about it. So if you are interested in it, you will get the slides afterwards. You can just check out this blog article. All right, so we are now open for the first round of questions, and then I will give back to Philippe.
Yeah, as you warm up for your questions, I have maybe 2-3 more slides to share with you, and I guess you need to stop sharing, Adrien, so I can share also. Yeah,
sure.
So yeah, so I wanted to point you, because obviously Adrien presented some of our templates. I wanted to point you to where you should find and leverage these templates. So we have 2 GitHubs, which are, I would say, your day-to-day use. One is the EMEA GitHub, and the templates that we have Adrien shared today can be found into Fortinet Azure solutions. Then you go into FortiGate, and then you see all the architecture, the network construct, which we have active, passive, active with Azure Load Balancer termination. The express route server template that Adrien shared on multi-hub today can be found here. So you have the design, what is being deployed. You can deploy that through an ARM template, but you also have this available through a Terraform template. If you go back to the root, and you see the design that Adrien was sharing, and then you can just deploy this construct, configure through CLI the APIs, or configure the IP address into the Azure console, and then you have this construct up and running. Yeah. So this is quite nice. I really advise you have a look into this GitHub. You have quite a lot of templates for SD-WAN, for express route, for I mean all the network construct we were discussing, and you have the Fortinet official templates, which are into the GitHub /Fortinet URL. We will push this URL to you through Rudy, through BOLL, so you can, on top of the slides, you can really scroll through this. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to come back to us again. Yeah, but this should be your, I would say, your public cloud Bible for public cloud security, and you have quite a lot of things in there. So back into the last slides on network security to the cloud. So we presented to you, and Adrien did a deep dive on Azure Route Server and Azure Application Gateway. So you understand there is a few constructs that are available on top. And dependent on what is your customer use case and what they're trying to do, we are having some type of guide or what is good, medium or poor solution. So if you need support on helping your customer decide the right network security architecture to Azure, again, we have this guide, and happy to have a discussion with you to review your customer directions, network architecture design, and advice. Yeah, so that's something you can ask for a short meeting with me and Adrien. We are happy to assist. So the templates, as we said, are available on GitHub. We have all the SDN connectors to the different cloud provider, and this is quite interesting. We have, by the way, a webinar on security as code and security automation, which is February 24th. That's a webinar organized by Fortinet. So I'm happy to welcome you if you're interested into automation and security as code. And then we will do a deep dive session with BOLL into the March timeframe as a follow-up. So this is something we can also welcome you with pleasure if you want to learn more about automation and security as code with Fortinet. And last and not least, most of your customers using the cloud are trying to understand, shall I use Azure Defender, or shall I use Fortinet, FortiManager, and FortiAnalyzer? How do I launch Azure Cloud Functions, from FortiManager or from FortiGate VMs? So all of this can be done. There's a lot of things that we can help you work with your customer. Your customer are not required to purchase Azure Sentinel, Azure Defender, Azure everything. That is something we can provide centrally as a consistent security that is also deployed on Azure and not just on Azure. So this is something we can help you and help you convince your customer of their interest to keep security managed in a consistent and central way. And that's the same for AWS and Google and other cloud for sure. Last, we have seen a lot of customers coming to you saying, well, I will go with Azure Firewall because it seems like it's good enough. Yeah. And it will auto-scale, it's a managed solution, so it looks good. That looks good on paper, but as you want to compare that solution in terms of security feature, there is a lot of limitation, and every single limitation means that it's creating new exposure to your customer. And new exposure is obviously a huge risk. Yeah. And we really advise that you look into this type of feature-to-feature comparison from FortiGate VM to Azure Firewall, Azure Premium Firewall. You have this discussion with your customer to make sure that the good enough decision is clearly not taken by default. And whenever the customer is wondering what is the limitation, what is FortiGate VM bringing additional in terms of security, we can assist you. We have technical material. We can demonstrate the tests and the results so you can convince your customer of their own interest. And last, obviously, Azure Firewall is really expensive because it's charging on traffic. And as soon as your customer is scaling in the cloud, you will have a huge price in the end of the month. Yeah. So there is a security interest, there is a consistency interest, but there is also a cost impact. And you should be able to demonstrate to your customer the interest, their own interest using FortiGate VM on Azure, on AWS, on the cloud providers. So we covered into this section the customer benefits of using FortiGate into the cloud and with the right network construct. Yourself as a partner, we're trying to help you get the right level of recognition. So we have two cloud partner program. One is the cloud business model. You need to pass NSE 6 Azure or NSE 6 AWS. We highly encourage that you go through this track because the training is a big half a day and it's really worth it. It's covering all the network constructs we have discussed here, and it's a hands-on training. So we really advise you go through this. And the NSE 7 cloud is obviously enabling the cloud specialization. We are really looking to get more partners, and we are really trying to encourage you and help you pass these certifications, because that's also a way to have more support from us and be more recognized by your customer. And also the last word is we are not only upfront payment on licensing. We can help your customer with pay as you go, pay as you use. We have a Flex VM program, which is quite interesting. It provides the capability for your customer to, let's say, if I go to the quick overview of what is the Flex VM portal, yeah, it's providing to your customer the ability to manage his licenses from a central portal and have everything, I would say, centrally managed. Yeah. So this is something that you can, yeah, I need to log again. So I will do the demo next time on FlexVM. But you have a portal which is really a great opportunity to manage all the licenses and charge your customer at the end of the month if they are using the MSSP FlexVM program. Last and not least, we are trying to help you get more recognition. We have campaigns that we can do with you as a partner. We can co-brand Fortinet plus you, or Fortinet plus Microsoft plus you as a partner. We can co-brand a campaign. We can really organize events. We can do webinar jointly. We can help you demonstrate your, I would say, value services into cloud security. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to ask. We can co-fund, so we can really try to create traction, visibility, exchange opportunities to get prospects. We can really help you also leverage the AWS region opening, which is, as you know, in the spring. We can do something in common for that also. So, you know, raise your hand, ask for support, and we can help you organize these events with great pleasure. Okay, so that is for me, that's it on cloud security, adaptive cloud. I don't know if there are any questions before we go to ZTNA right now.
Philippe, we have heard about the FortiDevSec and FortiCWP, and yeah, what's the difference between the two devices or two appliances?
Yeah, okay, so you refer, Rui, you refer to FortiCWP. That's the platform I was showing before. FortiCWP is a risk. Is a public cloud risk visibility tool, which is a SaaS service. It is something which your customers, as a partner, your customers can scroll and click and see what is their exposure on blob storage. They can understand if there are any open ports that should have been closed, if there is any botnet exposure. And then they can run compliance reports. So FortiCWP is really a public cloud IaaS risk assessment, risk management tool, and you can also drive some remediations. FortiDevSec is targeting a very different audience. It's not targeting the network and security teams. It's targeting the application developer and security teams. So FortiDevSec is scanning the libraries and the code of your customers prior to them releasing into production and into their CI/CD pipeline. So this is really complementary. This is really two different solutions. Here you're into the DevSecOps framework, and FortiCWP is into security operations for public cloud. So this is very complementary. And we are here with FortiDevSec, we are closing a gap, I would say, in our portfolio, which was targeting the application developer. Yeah. Okay. So, but that's a good question, because you're right. Our portfolio is a bit large, and sometimes it's confusing, the name, FortiCWP, FortiCASB, FortiDevSec. I'm happy to do a really detailed demo if any partner is interested. If you want to get hands-on the solution, happy to assist. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good question. Thank you.
So now we have no more questions. I think we can go further with the CTNA. topic with Adrian.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much. So we'll do another 10 minutes sales pitch intro on ZTNA, just to give you the sales pitch, yeah. And then I hand over to Adrien, who will be more into obviously the solution deployment and how to manage, yeah. So on the sales pitch, so what is ZTNA about? We see that obviously, you know, the users are now, everybody's working from home, so that is the truth, and there's a lot of exposure coming from this, yeah, that's obviously the situation. Securing the networking at home and the access to enterprise application from home is now a major challenge, yeah, in your customers. Also, VPN is not good enough anymore. VPN is really not enabling this efficient, secured access from home user to the application. So it's now ending into, I would say, is use, and it's creating a lot of challenge. And then obviously we need to see how to secure the endpoints being the end user PCs, but also the IoT device, the edge computing, and all of the branch computing, which is now going to proliferate, yeah. So this is becoming now a new challenge for your customers. And in this emerging, much more diverse and much more complex device ecosystem, the customers need to maintain consistent security profile, which are applicable to user, device, applications. And that is now becoming critical, because you cannot just manage the applications alone, or the network alone, or the user alone. You have to look at it as a consistent ecosystem. Your VPN, as you understood, is lacking the granular access control, and we need to enable work from home security end-to-end to applications, and also from any endpoints. So ZTNA becomes a must, as you have the customers need to control who is accessing to what, with what type of rules and access security, and what type of policies to enable all of this connectivity into a performant, centrally managed ecosystem. So this is really what ZTNA is about. And if we now zoom into ZTNA from a networking and network security aspect, what is the solution we provide? We provide a proxy type of access from any device, any location, any user, to any applications wherever they run, being in public cloud, in your customer data center, into a shared cloud, private cloud. We enable this consistent, centrally managed, policy-driven access to applications. And this is granular. This is by user type, by application type. This is role-based. This is an integrated solution which can leverage authentication mechanism. And this is obviously multi-cloud and hybrid cloud enabled. So this is what is our ZTNA solution. And the way it works is we use FortiClient and FortiClient EMS as a policy management platform. And this is controlling and enabling access through secured and dual authentication. And this is continuous dynamic access control. So this is not just a one-time access to public cloud and it's over. From your FortiClient endpoint, there is a dynamic control and dynamic granting of the applications against user rules and user rights and application type. So this is really what is our ZTNA offering, high level. And the way it works is FortiClient EMS is controlling and managing all of the rights, all of the, I would say the posture, the security posture is centralizing, obviously, and creating the right reporting and telemetry, and creating the right tunneling between the endpoints and the applications. So we need FortiGate to create the secure tunnel. We need FortiClient EMS to configure the ZTNA rules and manage centrally. And then FortiClient for the ZTNA agent to enable the access and the connectivity from the end user or the device to the application's placeholder. The authentication solution is optional. It can be integrated with obviously a multi-vendor or third party. But FortiAuthenticator is also a strong solution, which is integrated with FortiEMS and FortiClient EMS and FortiGate. So that's also something you can propose to your customer. And there's also a very, very strong authentication solution, dual factor. So that is a complete ecosystem, which is very, I would say, advanced, integrated into the fabric, and simple to deploy, simple to use, and brings all the benefits. So that is the overview I wanted to do on the sales pitch. The customer is leveraging their FortiGate investments. You don't have to reinvest into firewalls. You can use FortiGate VM on Azure. You can use FortiGate VM on your environment or physical appliance. You can leverage your SD-WAN capability. You just enable ZTNA through FortiClient and FortiClient EMS, and then you're up and running, and you have ZTNA point-to-point in your entire ecosystem. So there is, for your customer, a great opportunity to leverage the fabric and deploy a ZTNA solution into a seamless and fast-track environment. Yeah. So this is just to give you the interest and the high-level concept of ZTNA, as I said, for the sales pitch. But now I will hand over to you, Adrien, for the solution and the how-to.
Thank you, Philippe. So I will share my screen again. So you see my slides? Awesome, awesome. Okay, as said, there are several changes in ZTNA. I will highlight those changes, and if you have any questions or if you have already tried it out, just feel free to ask, or we can also schedule a follow-up if you need anything. So why using ZTNA? Now it's a time for a shift. It means all the applications which are, or most of the applications which we are consuming nowadays are based on a web application or are web-based. And therefore it's quite easy to access such an application, right? And we see a shift from VPN to just ZTNA. This means we have all this authentication on a session basis. This means we have a device authentication, and we also have a security posture check, which is now real time in 702, and also user authentication and authorization. So what does it mean? In Fortinet or FortiOS 7.0 ZTNA, there is telemetry information from the FortiClient, or a FortiClient is installed on the endpoint, and it is gathered by the EMS server or managed by the EMS server. And the EMS server is returning a profile and a ZTNA tag if the posture check is okay. Then we also request a certificate from the EMS server, and you will get then a signed ZTNA certificate on the endpoint. The ZTNA tags and all the telemetry information are synchronized with all the FortiGates in the whole security fabric. You can also link many different FortiGates and fabrics to the EMS server. And afterwards, we are, or the client, the endpoint is establishing an HTTPS connection. So we are verifying then the certificate which we got from the EMS server per session, and also authenticate the session with, for example, the user credentials. Then we allow or we connect from the FortiGate side to all the applications which need to be accessed by the client. Afterwards, the endpoint receives the response and so on. Same for other connections like DNS tunnels. We are also re-establishing them from the FortiGate to the server. We have also, as stated, posted checks. If AV, for example, is disabled, and so therefore the posted check fails on the endpoint. So we don't have any tag, ZTNA tag anymore, and all the connections or all the sessions will be discarded. This is how traffic flow looks like. So as said, we are establishing from the device, from the client session to the FortiGate ZTNA access proxy. This is how it is called. And then the certificate exchange, or we are presenting the certificate from the device. And after the device and the certificate is checked, then the connection to the backend server is being established and the content is being presented by the FortiGate device. Here's a detailed traffic flow with the IP addresses in it. This is a transparent proxy, as we call it, on the FortiGate. And now we are also supporting IPv6 in every different flavor. This means we are supporting IPv6 for the WIP support, for the WIP access, so access to the access proxy and also to the backend servers, or only to the access proxy, and then we have IPv4 to the backend servers and so on. In the GUI, we have the full support of the TCP forwarding access proxy. So this means you can see all the ZTNA servers you have configured in the GUI, and then you can just attach service mappings to it. So here we have, for example, HTTPS and TCP forwarding to the EL Apache ZTNA server. You can then define the certificate. So this is the certificate which is presented to the client web browser and accessing the web. And we can also then configure here the whole server mapping. So we are mapping the CTNA server to the services. So the real service behind. You can also see that on the config part here. We can also use load balancing and also scan set different types for the service. For example, HTTP can only be set in CLI, but I guess most of or all the applications are using HTTPS or encrypted HTTP. We have also load balancing available. If we have hosts or web servers which need to be reached, or every time the same web server need to be reached, we can attach a host header. And as soon as we detect the host header, we will then route the traffic to the same backend server. These are the load balancing options, so for the real service. And we can also build a very complex construct. So we can say with the ZTNA tags, what conditions need to be met that we get a specific tag, or which tag we want to have for match on a dedicated policy. So these are the proxy policies, and we can set if there is an or an and logic. So any is basically an or, and the all option is basically the and option. We have the same in the ZTNA tag groups, where we can set the logic option, and also on the ZTNA or on the EMS side for the ZTNA tag. So this is quite important, since here on the 40 gate or 40 client endpoint management server, the EMS server, you can then build a construct. So if a user is in a specific Active Directory group, for example, and has Windows Defender enabled or any other antivirus software, then assign this tag. You can build here everything you want. You can also build it device specific. So if the user is connecting from an iOS device, it will get a different tag. Or if it is if he is connecting from his, I don't know, unmetered computer, then he will get another tag as well. So we can then generate the firewall policies for this ZTNA tag. And in 40 OS 7, you needed to have a dedicated firewall policy. And an implicit firewall policy is being generated with 40 OS 7.02. We have here the ZTNA rules. As said, these are the proxy policies. We only can here state what kind of ZTNA server should be accessed by whom and on which destination. And I have now several use cases what we can do with this ZTNA servers. We can have several different external VIPs, and then in the back we can have different backend servers. So we can have a load balancing pool as the first option here states. We can also have just a website, for example, and then you have another web server which is presenting a website or another application. So we need 3 ZTNA rules for that. And we can also just use the URL, so the full qualifying domain name, and then you can access those VIPs. You can also set virtual hosts, so we can set the same ports and just use different host names to access those access proxies. This is very easy in case of you don't need to configure all these different VIPs with different ports. So you can just say one port and then the load balancing rule in front. For example, for the usage in Microsoft Azure, then you just need to open one single port on the load balancer. You have also URL paths you can work with. Same, instead of the different host name, you can just attach names to the VIPs. This is then defined by the path section in the server mapping. And you have also the forwarding. So this is the address of the SSH server or also the subnet. So first we need to create the firewall's address option checked for the real server IP. And then you can then map with TCP forwarding the real servers to this ZTNA proxy. So on the client side, it is quite easy just to illustrate what is being mapped. Sorry, I hope you can still hear me. Still the background noise is quite high here.
We don't hear the background too
Okay.
much, so I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm lucky then.
Absolutely.
So the destination host is always the real server, which is shown in the FortiClient. This might confuse you, that's why I'm highlighting it here. And then the proxy gateway is then the VIP, which is configured on the FortiGate. So the external port needs to map the proxy gateway on the FortiClient configuration. We can also, or you can also configure those FortiSetDNA connections on the FortiClient directly on the EMS server. You can just adjust the XML profile, which is being pushed to the FortiClient to configure those servers. So here a mix of multiple services on a single ZTNA server. So you have different protocols which are being accessed on the same ZTNA server, and for example, also a load balancing pool behind domain name. You can also have support now for SAML in the GUI. You don't have to enable the proxy or explicit proxy feature in the visibility section. So you can just now add in the authentication scheme the authentication rules without enable them. For example, here you can use a SAML provider, and then you can just configure that SAML in the firewall access proxy configuration. So we are already at the final enhancement, I would say. These are the event logs. Finally, we have them. So it was a bit tricky to gather the logs from the ZTNA connections. Now we have a dedicated ZTNA section to troubleshoot all the ZTNA event logs. All right, this was it from the ZTNA part. Now I'm excited for your questions. As Philippe also stated, we have different resources available. For example, if you are, what is the minimum requirement for the developer network? I guess it's NSC 4 or 7, not sure. You can then spin up a sandbox environment and play with this ZTNA by yourself. And also the GitHub pages which Philippe referred to are also listed here. Once the github.com/Fortinet or the Fortinet-Cloud, they are both being maintained by Fortinet employees. So questions now?
Yeah, I think, Adrien, there's two questions. One is from Marcus, which is a very good one. Is it now possible to configure ZTNA connection rules on the EMS for all clients?
Exactly. This is what I mentioned then in this next slide. This question might be or might pop up before that, but yes, you can just edit the XML. I can jump to the slide real quick. Where was it? Here we go. This was the slide. And here you can just see that you can then configure those ZTNA rules, connection rules on the EMS and push them through the profile to the FortiClient. Yes, this is possible.
That's great. Thank you. I hope that answers, Marcus. Then we have a question from Frederic. With all the load balancing features in ZTNA on FortiGate, when do we need a Forti ADC? because we have 40 now. We have a load balancing also in ZTNA. So is 40 ADC required, and when do we need it? Yeah.
The 40 ADC does, of course, have very advanced capabilities for load balancing. It's the ZTNA is only ZTNA related. The ADC is more for external application related. So ZTNA or the ADC might come in place behind the ZTNA connection or an internal or also external published application, which do not need to be accessed by ZTNA, or both in combination, of course. If you have a specific project you're working on, or if you have anything you want to discuss with us, feel free to reach out. We can have a look on it on a detailed basis.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can deep dive on your customer needs. Yeah, with pleasure. There's another 2 more questions. Do we have a real demo on how to access a web server with ZTNA? And EMS is available as a separate appliance or integrated on FortiGate?
Okay, this were two separate questions, right?
Yeah, there's 2 different questions. First is the real demo on how to access a web server with ZTNA. Do we have a demo environment? And then is EMS a separate appliance or FortiGate extension?
It depends if you have or what NSE level you are certified on. I guess it's NSE 7. Then you will have access to the Fortinet Developer Network, and in there you have also the ZTNA, also a ZTNA web server. You can have access, or you can play around with all these different products in the Fortinet security fabric and test it out by yourself. This is possible, yes. And otherwise, if you don't have anything, feel free to reach out.
How EMS is available as a separate appliance or integrated in FortiGate?
No, the EMS server is a dedicated appliance, which is available on-premise or also as a cloud service, the EMS Cloud. But if you need any licenses to test something in your lab, if you don't have access to Fortinet Developer Network, feel free to reach out, and we are happy to organize and help assist you, that you can then try it out by yourself.
Yeah, you can ask your CAM, or you can ask myself. We will grant you a ITF license with pleasure, so you can play with this. And then if you need a follow-up meeting, again, don't hesitate. Yeah, we're here for help. So we can spend more time, do demos, and help you get started. Yeah, with pleasure. There is one more question, Adrien. Maybe I'll let you read it because it's a bit long. It's about how FortiGate authenticate user is into the chat. So I will read it. Yeah, FortiGate authenticate users on FortiGate by source IP. Is that the same way with ZTNA? If yes, what happens if multiple users behind one NAT IP? It's in the chat if you want to.
So this is not the same, actually. On ZTNA, we authenticate each and every session. So it is not authenticated by the source IP. So therefore, it doesn't really matter what IP session is being initiated from. If there is a matching policy and with the correct interface assigned, and also obviously the networks also play a role, but in the end, if there are multiple connections from multiple different IPs which are allowed to connect, then it doesn't matter because it is on a session basis. I hope I understood this question correctly. Otherwise, feel free to reach out afterwards as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a subsequent question can FortiGate differentiate all the different users with the same source public IP? Or, I mean, that's the underlying question, I guess, yeah?
Sorry, I did not get that.
Yeah, I think the question is FortiGate differentiating all users with the same source public IP, or do we need Forti EMS to do that? I think that's the underlying question, yeah?
I mean, we need the EMS server for ZTNA at all.
Yeah.
So we cannot do it without, we cannot do ZTNA without the EMS server, since we need ZTNA tag, which is being assigned to the client.
Clear. And the last one is from Marcus. Is EMS an appliance? It's not based anymore on a Windows server?
It is on a Windows server. Yes, it is still. There are plans to redo that, but there's nothing specific at the moment. But as of now, it is a Windows server.
Yeah, that's, I think that answers. I have one last slide to share, one or two. Maybe I think we covered all the questions. Hopefully we have not missed any. I just want to share a last message. So, as Adrien just stated, there's so much more capabilities now with ZTNA that it's really the time for you to discuss with your customer this evolution of their VPN, tunnels and networking. There's much more granular control. There's no more open broad VPN access. You have obviously application-based security and improved user experience. So you really have, I would say, an evolution which is worth discussing with your customer. And if you combine this zero trust with SD-WAN, which is another discussion that you should trigger, and you can explain your customer their benefits of SD-WAN on-ramp to the cloud. If you combine that, you can really help your customer evolve into the highest flexible, secured networking to the cloud, to their applications. So we really advise that you open this discussion with your customer before anyone else is doing it, by the way. And then we can assist you with the demo, with the solutions and the integrated environment, so you can really prove the value add to your customer. Yeah, I think that's the point I wanted to make. And I was just saying into the webinar that I will do a quick demo on FlexVM. So I have the portal now up and running. So I will use 1 minute. So FlexVM, as I said, is a way to control centrally all your licenses, create new tokens for customer VMs, yeah, and then deploy these VMs into private cloud, into VMware, into public cloud, into Azure, etc. And then you can start the VM licensing from that central portal at any time. So this is obviously quite interesting because you can provide a central management platform to your customer on FortiGate, FortiWeb VMs, and they can see that VM's usage, yeah, into a central dashboard. So you see here the list of VMs that have been deployed, the license token, the status. Then you click on the VM and you can stop that VM token. You can start, you can edit, you can add CPU anytime. So it's a very flexible license management opportunity on a daily basis. Yeah. So I just wanted to.
Philippe, just one question. You're still showing the evolution of VPN tunnel slide, right?
Ah, thank you, Adrien. Very, very sorry because I was actually aiming to do a demo of the FlexVM portal. So let me try again. Thank you. I was sharing the wrong thing. Yeah. So do you see my screen now? Okay, yes. Thank you. So yeah, so I was just sharing very quickly to you the FlexVM portal. So here you see the virtual machine entitlement where you can stop or start a VM. You see here the dashboard view where you have the usage of your licenses on a daily basis. And this is against number of points or tokens that are consumed. And then you can, as I said, you can obviously look at all your VMs which are up and running, active, stopped, and you can manage your licensing into a central portal. So we encourage that you, if your customer is looking at this flexibility, if your customer is interested into central license management on VMware, on public cloud, that could be a way for you to demonstrate that. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to cover today. So we've gone through adaptive cloud security and the portfolio and network security. We've gone through ZTNA and how it can be configured, deployed, the benefits of that. And also we have discussed very briefly about SD-WAN and SD-WAN on-ramp to the cloud. So all these topics can be obviously looked into more detail, and we are ready to spend the time it takes to help you at any upfront or any project. So don't hesitate. And then we have much more topics, to come. We have security as code. We have email security. We have web protection. If you want to get more insight into this, raise your hands and ask for any meeting. We can present to you with great pleasure also. Yeah. And FortiDevSec, which is a new product. Again, if you're interested, ask for sometimes we will be pleased to support you. So thanks very much. It was a great pleasure to present this session today. It was a lot of material, but I see most of the people stayed until the end. So that's great and very much appreciated. And I'll let you conclude, Rudy. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, many thanks to you, Philippe and Adrian, for the interesting sessions. I'm looking for other questions. We have no questions. Yeah, I will thank you to all participants of this BOLL Morning Session on the adaptive cloud security. The presentations or recordings will be made available afterwards. And if you have any questions for one of the topics, please come to us or to Fortinet, to Philippe or Adrian, and we will help you to find a solution for your customers. Yeah, and I think, yeah, have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you again at another BOLL morning session.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity. It was a great pleasure again, and yeah, pleased to see you, hopefully next time.
Okay.
Good day.
Thank you, and
Bye,
see
everyone.
you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.